Whoa! Well, good morning. This is in our crane, and this morning I'm in the what is currently the rather sleepy village of Blythe. Well, it would be sleepy if it wasn't such a main traffic route on the A614 here. But this is going to be the focus, I think, of the anti-fracking campaign here in North Nottinghamshire. And yesterday there was a lot of emotion as the spudding rig went in to the Tinker Lane well site on the Retford Road, which is the A634. And just literally right in front of me is the road that all of the traffic for the iGas well site is going to have to come down from the A1 down through the village here, and then turning into Retford Road for the final stretch up to the well site. And although it's just a couple of miles away from the village, it might as well be in another universe, because so few people in Blythe seem to want to engage. And of course this is the iGas dream, that they can do this without anybody really giving a flying frack about their activities. You know, they'll sneak through the village, or they'll try, and then they can establish their well site, which is quite certainly going to be a centre of iGas activity if they manage to get themselves established. But the good news is, they lead the spudding rig, and all that came in yesterday was basically the kit necessary to establish the well and place the conductor casing in, the surface casing. So this isn't the main rig. It's going to be another few weeks, 2-3 weeks perhaps, although according to iGas perhaps before the end of the month. So what's that, 2 weeks before the main rig comes in. And it would seem that iGas are still in the process of actually trying to locate a rig, or maybe they're still negotiating and want to hedge their bets, because on the 4th of May the Nottinghamshire County Planning Officer Oliver Meek received this letter from Chris Herbert, who's the Technical Director of SLR Consulting Limited, who are working on behalf of iGas. Interestingly, the tagline of SLR Consulting is Global Environmental and Advisory Solutions. That's not solutions, by the way, for you or me. It's solutions for the corporatocracy. And here's what the letter says. It says, the choice of drilling rig has now been narrowed down to 2 rigs, the HH220 and the Drill Tech. So the HH220 is Drill Mech, and the other one is Drill Tech. The final choice of which will be subject to commercial availability in the marketplace. Lighting assessments to demonstrate compliance with the rigs of condition, compliance with the requirements of condition 19 have been undertaken for both drill rigs, and approval is sought for both rigs. Well, I mean, the fact that they say that the lighting requirements have been tested, well, of course that remains to be seen. But nonetheless, this letter is from 11 days ago, and so you know, I'm sure that a Freedom of Information request or a phone call even to Oliver Meek can establish the latest state of play on the approval being given by Nottinghamshire County Council to permit one of these 2 rigs to be located on the well site at Tinker Lane. So Blythe needs to be the centre of activity from this point forward, and it's a perfect location because there's a nice area of green here that you can sit on and watch the trucks go by, or whatever you choose to do. And right opposite there's a couple of pubs. There's the Red Hart Hotel, and the other one is called the Four Ways Hotel. So seems like you know, perfect location really to hang out through the summer. And of course what it will do is it will actually get the people of Blythe to perhaps question why it is that so many people are hanging out on their green, watching all the traffic go by, and occasionally maybe stopping it, who knows. But obviously down at the gates, you know, iGas are going to do whatever they can do with whatever kit they manage to get on. So Blythe would seem to be the perfect location. There's a bit of parking up the road here, and you know, I'm sure that you know, we can find some more parking locations. But it's time for the anti-fracking community to get their message across to the residents of Blythe, because everyone watching this knows what the impact will be if this industry gets itself established. The serious negative environmental and health impacts are now very well documented, yet we have a government and of course a corporatocracy that basically doesn't give a damn about either the environment or the health of anyone. It's just pure collateral. Why do you think the industry calls these locations the sacrifice zone? Well, I'm sure it doesn't make you feel very good, but basically anyone living in this part of the country, right across up to north of the North York Moors and right across to the coast in Lancashire, basically, whether you like it or not, you live in a sacrifice zone. And the reason that you live in a sacrifice zone is because the government and the corporations work on the basis that you don't care, that you're not interested enough to actually resist their pernicious activities. And of course, as I've been alluding to over the past few weeks now, basically since the middle of March, when it became evident that the culling of trees throughout the country is directly related to the planned rollout of the 5G technology. And I've always maintained that it doesn't matter how many people you reach, it's who you reach to. So even if you put up a video blog or you write a blog and it's only read or watched by 1 or 2 people, it doesn't matter about the numbers, it's who's watching. And one of the reasons that I host the Alternative View events on an annual basis is really as a sort of catalyst to bring people together and give people the opportunity to have informal discussion throughout the weekend. And I just want to share with you something that has come about as a result of AV and in particular Mark Steele's presentation and his subsequent workshop at the Alternative View 9 conference the weekend before last. It appears that one of the participants who attended that event was a lady from Austria, and unbeknown to any of us, she works at the United Nations. And she sent me an email yesterday because yesterday morning, António Guterres, who is the United Nations Secretary General, visited the UN office in Vienna and had a roundtable meeting with all the staff. And I want to share with you the question that this lady asked of António Guterres yesterday. Mr. Secretary General, UN staff have been repeatedly told that they are the most important resource in the organisation. Since December 2015, the staff at the Vienna International Centre have been exposed to off-the-scale electromagnetic radiation from Wi-Fi and mobile phone boosters installed on the very low ceilings throughout the buildings. Current public exposure levels are at least 1 quintillion times, that's 18 zeros, above natural background radiation. And this is according to Professor Olle Johansson of the Karolinska Institute in Sweden. The highly dangerous biological effects of electromagnetic frequencies have been documented by thousands of studies since 1932, indicating that we may be facing a global health catastrophe with orders of magnitude worse than those caused by tobacco and asbestos. Mr. Secretary General, on the basis of the precautionary principle, I urge you to have these EMF emitting devices removed immediately and to call a halt to any rollout of 5G at UN duty stations, because it is designed to deliver concentrated and focused electromagnetic radiation in excess of 100 times current levels in the same way as do directed energy weapons. In line with the UN guiding principles on business and human rights to protect, respect and remedy, 5G technologies must be subjected to independent health and safety assessments before they are launched anywhere in the world. There is currently an international appeal, which you can find on www.5gappeal.eu, signed by 237 EMF scientists from 41 nations, urging the UN and particularly the World Health Organization to exert strong leadership in fostering the development of more protective EMF guidelines, encouraging precautionary measures and educating the public about health risks, particularly risks to children and fetal development. Mr. Secretary General, we have a unique opportunity here at the UN office at Vienna. Since our medical records are digitized, you have the possibility of releasing data on a closed population exposed to off-the-scale levels of electromagnetic radiation to establish if there have been abnormal health consequences for the UN staff here over the past 28 months. I urge you to do so and stop any 5G rollout in these buildings immediately. Thank you. Well, it seems that got a rather surprising reaction from António Guterres. He stated that he had actually just installed some Wi-Fi devices in his own home, and that this information that was presented to him in this question was completely new to him. However, he did promise to check with the World Health Organization about this topic. Now, those who have seen some of my previous presentations will know my thoughts on the World Health Organization. It may actually be a bit of a misnomer, but nonetheless, the question has been asked of António Guterres. And the bottom line is, once you know something, once you've been made aware of it, you can't unknow it. You can bury your head in the sand and hope that it goes away, but then you are culpable in effectively allowing it to roll out. And one of the things that really, really disturbs me about the police presence, and particularly yesterday's very aggressive police presence at Tinker Lane, and the well site just a couple of miles away from here, is the number of female police officers who clearly have not done their research. They have not investigated the impact of fracking on unborn children and on newly born children. And in fact, of course, it's in Utah, and the midwives in Utah, in Vernal, Utah, who first seem to have picked this up, certainly to the point where it was further studied. And the exposure to the contamination, whether it's in the water, whether it's in the soil, whether it's in the air, but the exposure to the contamination led to a phenomenal increase in miscarriages and neonatal deaths. And one of the reasons that the anti-fracking community is made up, I would say 70% plus of women, is that it is the female of the species that appears to be able to think longer term, to look at the potential of the impact on future generations, whereas the male of the species seems to be somewhat much more limited to left brain thinking, to be focused on the roof over the head, the food on the table, and not thinking beyond the next salary check. So the bottom line is that whether Blythe actually suffers, because don't think for 1 minute that this lone well site at on the Retford Road here is going to be the be-all and end-all. As I said yesterday, you don't do a seismic survey unless you intend to drill. You don't drill unless you intend to frack, and you don't frack unless you intend to establish a network of frack pads right across the whole of the target geology, which is an enormous area across the north of England. So the reality is that we have a lot of work to do here in North Nottinghamshire. This, I have to say, has been the toughest campaign yet. The level of awareness, the level of interest is less than I've experienced anywhere else in the country, with the possible exception of Hawley in Surrey, which is just a dormitory town for Gatwick Airport. But here, this is a beautiful, beautiful part of the country. I can see why people live in this stunning area, but unless they participate, then the corporations are simply going to ride roughshod. And the bottom line is, not only are you going to get sick, the police are here, waved to them this morning, you're not only are you and more likely your children going to get sick, but your property prices are going to absolutely tank. I mean, the bottom line is you are not going to be able to sell your properties, because nobody in their right minds, once they learn that there's a frack pad a couple of miles up the road, is going to be interested in moving into a location where they are putting their children at significant risk. So, as is always the case, do your own research. This multi-pronged attack on humanity is something that only we who elect to participate can actually do anything about. Otherwise, the prognosis is pretty clear. It's spelled out almost in words of one syllable. They are so brash and bold in their agenda that they tell us what it is that they're going to do and work on the basis that nobody, or certainly not enough people, are going to have the gumption to be able to resist. So ultimately, it is entirely up to us, all of us. So thanks again for joining me today. It's a beautiful day here. I'm going to head down to Mansfield shortly to offer support to the protector who did manage to get locked on yesterday. He refused police bail conditions, so he's in court this morning. And I know that there are a number of people from the local anti-fracking community who are planning to congregate here in Blythe today. So if you're anywhere near this area, please drop by and come visit the anti-fracking community. And we're going to be somewhere around the Red Hart and the Four Ways. Not going to be difficult to find. Take care. Catch you tomorrow.